March 27, 1973. The Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles. Inside the auditorium, the air is thick with expensive perfume and nervous energy. It is the 45th Academy Awards, the biggest night in the entertainment world. The room is a sea of tuxedos, diamonds, and egos. In the front rows sit the gods of cinema: Michael Caine, Raquel Welch, Jack Nicholson. They are all drinking champagne, rehearsing their speeches, waiting for their moment of glory. But there is one empty seat that everyone is staring at. The seat reserved for the heavy favorite of the night, Marlon Brando. Everyone knows he is going to win Best Actor. His performance as Don Vito Corleone in The Godfather didn't just break box office records. It changed acting forever. Hollywood was ready to forgive him for being difficult. The industry was ready to welcome the prodigal son back home. All he had to do was show up, walk those few steps onto the stage, take the golden statue, and bow. But Marlon Brando wasn't in the building. He wasn't even in his limousine. While the orchestra played and the cameras rolled, Brando was miles away in his house on Mulholland Drive, watching the ceremony on a small television set. He wasn't preparing a thank you speech. He was preparing an ambush. Sitting in his place at the ceremony was a young woman nobody recognized. She wore a traditional Apache buckskin dress, her hair long and black. She sat silently amidst the glitter of Hollywood, clutching a typed letter in her hand. Her name was Sacheen Littlefeather. To understand why this night turned into a riot, we have to look back at where Marlon Brando was before The Godfather. In the early 70s, Brando was poison. The studios hated him. He was famous for causing delays, fighting with directors, and ballooning in weight. When Francis Ford Coppola suggested him for The Godfather, the executives at Paramount screamed, "No." They literally said, "As long as I am president of this studio, Marlon Brando will not be in this picture." They humiliated him. They made the greatest actor of his generation do a screen test like a beginner. They made him sign a bond promising not to cause trouble. But Brando swallowed his pride. He stuffed cotton in his cheeks, greased his hair back, and whispered in that raspy voice. He created a legend. The movie became a monster hit. And suddenly, the same hypocrites who hated him were begging to give him an award. They wanted to use Brando to sell their show. But Brando saw something else happening in America that he cared about much more than a golden statue. While Hollywood was patting itself on the back, a real war was happening in South Dakota. The town of Wounded Knee had been seized by activists from the American Indian movement. They were protesting broken treaties and the brutal treatment of Native Americans by the U.S. government. It was a siege. Federal marshals, FBI agents, and armored personnel carriers had surrounded the town. There was a media blackout. People were being shot at. Brando was furious. He had spent his life watching Hollywood movies, specifically John Wayne movies, where Native Americans were depicted as bloodthirsty savages to be killed by heroic cowboys. He believed the film industry was responsible for degrading the image of Native people. He decided he couldn't accept an award from an industry that did that. He couldn't drink champagne while people were fighting for their dignity at Wounded Knee. So he hatched a plan. It was risky. It was dangerous. He called Sacheen Littlefeather, a young actress and activist. He told her, "I want you to go in my place. And if they call my name, I want you to refuse the Oscar." He typed out a 15-page speech. But the producers of the show found out. Minutes before the category was announced, a producer cornered Sacheen backstage. He threatened her. He said, "If you go over 60 seconds, I will cut the microphone and have you arrested." The pressure was immense. She was 26 years old, standing alone against the entire Hollywood establishment. Finally, the moment arrived. The presenters, Roger Moore and Liv Ullmann, walked out. They opened the envelope. The room held its breath. And the winner is Marlon Brando. The theme from The Godfather erupted. The applause was deafening. The camera panned to Brando's empty seat. And then, Sacheen stood up. She walked into the aisle. She climbed the stairs. Roger Moore smiled, confused, and held out the Oscar. The entire world watched as she raised her hand and pushed it away. The image froze in time. Sacheen Littlefeather, refusing to touch the golden idol of Hollywood. Roger Moore stood there, the statue left hanging in midair, his smile turning into awkward confusion. Sacheen stepped to the microphone. She didn't read the long speech Brando wrote. She knew she had only seconds before they cut the feed. She spoke from the heart. "Hello, my name is Sacheen Littlefeather. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award." A gasp rippled through the auditorium. You could hear the confusion. The prodigal son wasn't coming back. He was rejecting them. She continued, her voice trembling but firm. And the reasons for this being the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry and on television in movie reruns. And then the room broke. It wasn't just silence. It was a war of noise. Half the audience began to boo. A low, angry, ugly rumble coming from the wealthy elite in their tuxedos. They felt insulted. They felt their party was being ruined by politics. But then, the other half, the younger generation, began to clap. Boos versus applause. The sound of a divided America echoing inside the theater. But the real violence wasn't happening on stage. It was happening in the wings, just out of sight of the cameras. Standing backstage was John Wayne, the Duke. For decades, John Wayne was the symbol of the American West. He built his career playing the hero who killed Indians. He represented the old guard, the conservative, patriotic establishment. To John Wayne, seeing a Native American woman on stage refusing an Oscar was not a protest. It was a personal attack. It was treason. According to multiple witnesses, John Wayne lost his mind. He was reportedly drunk, his face turning a shade of purple with rage. He started shouting, cursing. He lunged toward the stage. He shouted, "Get her off. Get that B*TCH off the stage." He fully intended to storm the podium and physically drag the young woman off himself. It took 6 security guards to stop him. Imagine that scene. 6 men struggling to hold back the 6'4" cowboy legend, while he kicked and screamed, foaming at the mouth, trying to attack a 26-year-old woman. It was the death rattle of the old Hollywood, fighting against the new. Back on stage, Sacheen finished her speech with grace. "I beg at this time that I have not intruded upon this evening, and that, in the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity." She walked off with her head high. She never touched the Oscar. Roger Moore, still holding the unwanted statue, walked off looking like he was holding a bomb. The ceremony continued, but the mood was destroyed. The balloon had popped. And then, to add salt to the wound, another cowboy legend stepped up. Clint Eastwood came out to present the award for Best Picture. Eastwood was the new face of the Western. But that night, he stood with the establishment. He couldn't resist taking a shot at Brando and Sacheen. He leaned into the mic, with that trademark squint, and said, "I don't know if I should present this award on behalf of all the cowboys shot in all the John Ford Westerns over the years." The crowd laughed. It was a cruel joke, mocking the massacre of Native people to ease the tension of the rich celebrities. It showed exactly whose side Hollywood was on. The aftermath was brutal. The press destroyed Sacheen Littlefeather. They called her a fake. They called it a publicity stunt. She was essentially blacklisted from Hollywood forever. The Academy changed the rules immediately. No more proxies. No more speeches from people who didn't win. But Marlon Brando? He didn't care. He was watching from home, likely smiling. He had done exactly what he wanted. He forced millions of people to talk about Wounded Knee. He forced Hollywood to look in the mirror and see its own ugliness. He never picked up the Oscar. The Academy tried to send it to him. He sent it back. That night in 1973 wasn't just about an award. It was a clash of eras. On one side, you had John Wayne, the violent, angry past, needing to be restrained by guards. On the other side, you had Marlon Brando, the rebellious future, using his silence to scream the truth. Brando proved that being an icon isn't just about acting. It's about knowing when to say no. What do you think? Was Brando a hero for giving up his moment of glory? Or was John Wayne right to be angry? And what about Clint Eastwood's joke? Was it funny or was it cruel?